Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Christensen,
I'm Coffee Brown.
and welcome to episode 15 of Don't Die Dumb. Today, we want to start out with something I hope is a bit lighter, but in a way, maybe not. I want to start out by talking about, of course, people's comments. And the first one was not disturbing, it's valid. You have a right to say what you think. They said, you two libtards don't know what you're talking about. And the guy on the right mentioned that they didn't put, when they deposed the leader of Venezuela, they didn't put the duly elected leader, Maria Machado, in power. And I say that because the people that are in power, the second person, the vice president, is just as bloodthirsty and such a...
He's part of the same regime.
Yeah, so you haven't changed the regime. But they said your argument breaks down because America is not allowed to install presidents or rulers of other countries. How do you respond to that?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, thank you. Thank you for commenting. And it's pretty clear you're somebody who doesn't like libtards, but you're watching anyway. And my hat's off to you for that. That takes a little bit of courage. On the other hand, if you're using words like libtard, you're kind of undermining your own credibility. You might say, I disagree with you two on this or that, or you're incorrect about something. But if you open up with name calling, I have to wonder if we're talking to a 14-year-old on his mom's computer. Let's assume for a moment this comment came from an adult who is reasonably informed. And you're right, the United States wouldn't have the legal authority to decide who rules Venezuela. But we weren't worried about legal authority. This is gunboat diplomacy, where we're capturing their ships. We took a ship that had changed to a Russian flag. Trump himself said, I put Maduro's number 2 guy in place because I didn't agree with the credibility or popularity of the woman who had been overwhelmingly popularly elected. So yes, in fact, he did decide who's the president. Yes, you are correct. He didn't have any legal authority to do that. And yes, we're living in a time when norms and laws simply do not apply because nobody holds this guy accountable for anything, ever. Nothing, no matter how extreme, not even the Epstein papers. So I take your point. And by the way, one of the things I wanted to thank you for is you said you guys are wrong, and then you said what we were wrong about, in your opinion. I don't think we were wrong in this case, but I really appreciate that, and I hope that you continue to watch and comment.
Also, I don't like to use the word tired toward a person. It's hurtful. It hurts people. And I know you're going to say...
You woke person.
Yeah, that it's woke and I'm a snowflake. Our society was moving toward a situation where if we saw some type of verbiage that hurt someone, we avoided it. We didn't want to hurt people. Now,
that made me think of something I wanted to mention to the maggots out there. You want to go back to a more traditional time. In fact, if you think about the way that they would like to take rights away from women, put them back in the kitchen, take away the vote, and so forth, if you think about the way they'd like to re-stratify us based on color, if you think about immigrant phobia, basically, and also the way they'd like to channel the only people who matter in this country are the people who are wealthy and have power. In other words, Victorian England. So just this morning, I did a little bit of homework. If you had lived in Victorian England as a white male, in other words, a society that was built entirely for the benefit of white males at the expense of everybody else, the odds are only about 15% that you would own your home. But if you lived in America in 2010, I chose that because it was before the Trump era, okay? In the libtard society that we had at that time, that was all woke and everything, where women and people of color counted as human beings, your chance of owning your own home was around 70%. So the multicultural society that you are deathly afraid of because it doesn't privilege you, you had a 70% chance of owning your own home. But a society built entirely around privileged, wealthy white males, you had about a 15% chance of owning your own home. Is that a paradox? No. The more inclusive a society is, the more robust the economy. And the more robust the economy, the more opportunities for all of us. And you know who said that first? Adam Smith, the patron saint of right-wing capitalism.
Now, I think there's a war on the middle class.
Yeah.
And I won't call it an administration, I'll call it a regime. And the odd thing to me is that 20% of the middle class is supporting it. We don't seem to, it's easy to be bloodthirsty. It's easy to jump on the cruelty bandwagon. And I hope our nation gets away from that. I hope people get away from that.
Well, and along with this is scapegoating of immigrants. I spent the last couple of months actually looking up everything I could find on the economics of immigration, including illegal immigration in America. And the most negative thing I could find is there's a short-term cost to illegal immigrants early on, but by the time their kids grow up, they are net contributors. For about the first 3 generations, immigrants from other countries, legal and illegal, are more likely to be entrepreneurs, meaning job creators, and are less likely to commit crimes. So in inappropriately scapegoating immigrants, we're undoing one of our economic engines, and by pointing our finger in the wrong direction, we're failing to fix the things we should be fixing, such as our anti-education, anti-science, anti-technology era. Education and science put America economically on top of the world from about 1950 up until about 1990 or maybe 2000, when this anti-education, anti-science thing started. Now we're chasing our best engineers and scientists away, and also we're pushing kids away from those as majors in colleges, and it will take at least, if we're lucky, a full generation for us to get back in the science and engineering game that made us so wealthy in the first place. There's a big, big consequence to scapegoating because we're spending all of our resources solving the wrong problems.
Now, one of the other comments was, why don't you talk about something a little lighter? So we'll do that. The Golden Globe nominations have come out, and we're going to
Was I nominated? Was I nominated, please?
Not
Please,
again
was I
this
nominated?
year, I'm sorry. They overlooked your home movies. But
What about our podcast? Was it nominated?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But the overall point is that one movie that was filmed here in New Mexico, where we broadcast from, is Rust. And it got a terrible rap because of the tragedy that was involved with it. But the movie itself, I really liked it. It was very genuine. It didn't have guys wearing cowboy hats that looked like they stepped off the pages of GQ. It showed a very flawed individual and a very evil individual, well, hoping to redeem himself. And I loved the research they did when they put the movie together. Your thoughts?
So you know a lot more about that era than I do. It's kind of your era of interest. Things that jumped out for me was that it's a very unsentimental character study of a generally bad person trying to do something good, but it's not like he's converted to becoming a sort of noble person. And there was so much discussion over over Alec Baldwin shooting his friend by accident and the difficulty with the armorer and all that stuff, that it's easy to forget to look at this film in its own right. But I think it was a very thoughtful, engaging movie, and I would highly recommend it. And I will say that Pete had to kind of push me into watching it. Westerns aren't really my thing, but I enjoyed it greatly.
At one point in the movie, they're drinking coffee, and the guy says, you want a cup of this Arbuckles? Arbuckles is a coffee made in Tucson, Arizona. And at one time, most cowboys thought that was the only coffee they had in America because it was so popular. Now, I will also say this. Like the film Unforgiven, the main character is terribly flawed, and they don't gloss that over like they did in other movies. Other movies that are out right now that I think you might be interested in, Sinners. Have you seen this?
I saw Sinners. I liked it a lot. Like Rust, it did a good job of examining with some care and detail a certain period of American history. And although the Jim Crow culture is a significant part of the story, it doesn't dominate it. It's basically a vampire story.
You
And but that's a secret? Was that a spoiler?
you don't want to give that away.
I thought everybody knew that. I thought that was like the log line.
First half of the movie is all about African American culture in the late 20s, early 30s.
Yeah.
The second half turns into a vampire movie. Now we've wrecked it.
I'm
for
so
ya.
sorry. I thought that was like the thing it was sold on.
No, they marketed it as, a period piece from the 20s, 30s. And the interesting thing about this film, sci-fi and a character piece, and then they move it into a musical, and they do it flawlessly.
The music was really, really good. The characters were intense and gritty and fascinating to me. And I enjoyed a window into a culture that I wouldn't have been allowed to visit had I lived in that era. So for all those reasons, I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I think most people will like this movie. Another movie that I'm dying to see, but I can't yet because they want too much money for it, to like 20 clams if you buy it, is Nuremberg. Russell Crowe will probably get nominated for an Oscar for this. You've seen it, right? You haven't, okay. Well, then neither of us are authorities on this, but purely from a historical perspective, I think it's good to watch. Also, in the movie, they ask one of the Nazi followers, how could you let this happen? And he says, because Hitler promised to make Germany great again.
Also, the Nuremberg trials are where we famously get that I was only following orders is not an excuse for war crimes. And yet, when Senator Kelly pointed out that it is illegal, which it is in both military and federal law, it is illegal to follow an illegal order, Trump wanted him busted in rank, and Pete Hegseth as well, for being for treason. So apparently, telling people that they are obliged to obey the law has become treason.
Another movie that's out now, and it's Del Toro is the director who did such a great job in remaking.
Frankenstein.
Well, before that, Creature from the Black
Wolfman.
Lagoon, and he got an Academy Award for that. Now he's done Frankenstein, and it's the best version I've ever seen. I have noticed a few people don't like it, but the original Frankenstein, written by Mary Shelley after she had a miscarriage, was about, is it proper to create life? And who knows what she was thinking at the time. It was a terrible, rainy, cold, miserable night when she stayed up all night and wrote it. It was sympathetic to the monster. And here it is as well. Your thoughts?
So Frankenstein is one of my all-time favorite books, and the Boris Karloff movies were probably why I first tried to read it. It took me a few tries to read it. It's dense Victorian writing,
Yeah.
and it genuinely is literature. It's often credited as the first science fiction, though Jules Verne can probably steal that thunder. And while the events in this movie differ from the book more than in most movies, the feel and the heart of the movie are closer to the book than most have been.
Also, at the end of the movie, they leave it open to a sequel, which I don't think they're going to do. But it was just done so beautifully. Every frame is just shot so... I would watch this for the cinematography alone. Another movie that's out now that has some Oscar buzz is Jay Kelly. And it's about a movie star who's a terrible egotist, but his big flaw is that he's selfish. He's at a crux in his career when he's about to go over the hill to be someone they used to talk about. And he's visiting his daughter in Italy, but he gets confronted over and over again by people, and sometimes in his own memory, by people he's terribly wrong. And you watch the movie thinking, is he going to have self-realization?
I haven't seen the movie, so no spoilers from me this time. Sorry
Okay,
about the other one.
don't tell the ending, thank God. Also,
Oh, is it the one where the butler does it?
yeah, that's the other movie. But anyhow, also, there's a movie I wrote that's premiering this week, and It's in Albuquerque, New Mexico at Glory Bound Ministries. It's not a religious movie, but it does have a moral aspect in it. And it's premiering Saturday, January 17th at 6:30. It's free, open to the public. If you want to come by and watch it, please do. I want to talk about AI because I'm seeing Steve Martin in a tuxedo as if he's about to give an award. And suddenly he starts talking about a product he says is the best product in the world. And I saw Harrison Ford doing an interview on Jimmy Fallon. These are clips on YouTube where he starts to talk about another product that we can't live without. These are both AI. They're phony. As soon as the stars see them, they'll take them down. But AI can really help us, but it can also be very, very dangerous.
AI is a complicated topic, and I think we'll be talking about it more on further podcasts. So I'm going to mention one aspect, but there are many, many aspects to this topic. It's going to be a recurring theme, I think. So one aspect is AI making us dumber? College students are using AI to write their essays, to shortcut their homework, and things of that sort. Sometimes even, because in class a lot of computers nowadays a lot of tests are taken on computer, and people will use AI to cheat on those tests as well. We actually went through something like this when I was in high school. I was in the last, when I was in the Navy, I was in the last cohort ever to be trained on on slide rules, I meant to say. They used to call them log sticks. And 4 function calculators came in. They came in while I was in high school, so a little earlier than that, but the Navy was a late adopter. Where I'm going with this is, for a long time, teachers would not allow 4 function calculators in classrooms because otherwise kids won't learn to add and subtract and do multiplication and division. But gradually some teachers tried it and stuff, and they did not feel like the students were suffering. And nowadays it's just absolutely routine for kids in grade school to use calculators on their math homework. And kids are about as good at math now as they were before the 4 function calculators came along. I think we're in a transition now with AI where right now students' reasoning skills are measurably suffering. The kids who are using AI now to get through their classes are going to graduate less competent than people of just 5 or 6 years ago. And that's sad. But I think, and this is where I wanted to go, the challenge for us educators is to figure out how to let students use AI for what it can do and then build on top of that. So for example, I might do a class assignment where I have everybody spend 15 or 20 minutes learning about a topic using ChatGPT and whatever other resources they want to, but then they're going to have to stand in front of the class with no resources and teach us what they just learned, so that they have to actually process it, reason with it, and add value to it. In that way, I think we can begin learning, and that's just one example. We're going to have to learn hundreds of techniques, but educators are going to have to step up and learn how to use AI to make people smarter rather than try to prevent them from using AI. I think that ship has sailed and it's not coming back.
The problem with education is the basics for education. That is to say, the classes are too big. I actually, in high school, I had a teacher the last week of our semester, of our year, turn to me and go, well, what's your name? They don't have the time
Right.
to give individual attention.
Right.
And the reason is there's not enough teachers, and we're not putting enough money into education. Now they're getting rid of the Department of Education. We need to pay teachers more, and we have the money to pay them more. But will we do it? That's the question. Will America stand up and say, look, the only way to upgrade our society is to educate our young, and we're willing to pay for it. 85% of Americans say they'll gladly pay higher taxes for cleaner air and cleaner water, but we can't get it. Our representatives aren't giving us what we need. But I feel the problem with education is they're overwhelmed and we're not paying teachers enough. What funds could we drain to help teachers? I know they want to add $1.5 trillion to the military. 30% of our money goes to the military. People dispute that with me, but let me say this. Don't say that because, well, that's for the armed services. You look at it's only 18%. No. When you consider the military, the CIA, FBI, Department of Justice, all the different aspects of it, it's 30%.
Yeah, well, there was a lot to unpack there, but two things to touch on. One is that back when we had a two-party system, one party was spending as much on the military, about as much on the military, as the entire rest of the world combined. The other party thought that's not enough.
Wow.
Yeah, wow is right. And many people on the right have said to me throughout my whole lifetime, the only legitimate use of government is police and military. Well, read the Constitution, read the preamble, and people go, well, that's not the real Constitution, that's the preamble. Yep, that's part of the Constitution. It's the part that says this is what the government is for. And there are 6 things in there. And what I can remember off the top of my head: promote the general welfare, which is where the word welfare comes from in its current context. Promote science and invention, which is where we got the National Science Foundation. Protect the Constitution. And there are a couple of others. And security, national security, is like number 5 on that list. So yes, national security and law and order are definitely functions of the government. But the notion that those are its only functions is like saying that as a physician, the only thing I ever treat is broken bones. If you have pneumonia, you're not my problem. No, the government has a lot of responsibilities, and they are written into the Constitution. So the notion that the only thing the government should do is build weapons and deploy them is not a difference of opinion. It's factually wrong.
I was told years ago that the basic purpose of any democracy is for the strong to protect the weak. Now, what we have going on now is a attitude that the weak need to be preyed upon and gotten rid of. We don't help the elderly. We don't help the very young. We are creating a society of uneducated people. We're not looking after each other. That's not a world I want to be a part of.
So there's always been this notion that democracy as a kind of social leveler prevents Conan from getting all the girls and getting all the money and getting all the gold. And everybody thinks that in a society where just the top 5% count, they're going to be in the top 5%. This is simple math. You, to a 95% likelihood, will not be in the top 5%. That's the way the math works. Like, for example, the fact that half of all Americans are below average in IQ, because that's the definition of average. And 95% of us will never be in the top 5%. Now, top 5% is where the knights were in medieval England. It's where the samurai were in Japan. It's where the nobility was in Victorian England. However, we don't have that. 90% of the country's wealth is in the hands of 0.1% of the people. So even if you think we should have a Victorian level of rich versus poor concentration of wealth, I'll be in the 5%. 5% won't get you there. Top 5% would only make you middle class now. You need to be in the top 0.1%. The wealth is so concentrated. I believe in differential rewards. I believe in capitalism. But I also believe that any system can be exaggerated to the point that it becomes a bad system. And we overshot by a mile right now.
I believe our military should be used for defense. I believe we need a stronger National Guard. We don't need a Department of War. We need a Department of Defense. The whole idea of renaming this is some kind of phony macho BS where we're going to scare the rest of the world by saber rattling.
We're saber rattling at friends, Canada and Greenland. We're saber rattling at Colombia, Syria.
Denmark.
Trump wants to take over Gaza. We're getting in a pissing match with Denmark, although that's over Greenland. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of others on Trump's list. Oh, Mexico. He wants to do something about Mexico. Well, if this is going to be an isolationist America is for Americans government, why are we meddling all over the world in all these other countries? And whomever said to us at the beginning of the show, Well, you're wrong. We don't have a right to appoint the president of Venezuela. You know what? We also don't have a right to grab Greenland. We don't have a right to confiscate Canada. So, yeah, sure, I'm with you. Let's not meddle with the rest of the world in those ways. And as Bill Gates has recently pointed out, millions of children have already died as a consequence of cutting off international aid. America was once a leader, but now we're becoming a pusher, an erratic, not very thoughtful pusher that's biting off more than it can chew.
Before we leap into another subject, our final subject for today, I want to leave you with this. In the last 2 years, 33 people have been shot by ICE, 9 have been shot by immigrants in America. Now, our final subject, something a bit lighter. Wash your ears out with this. America's obsession with coffee. When did it start? I think it started in the early 80s when Starbucks came about. And Starbucks came about with this really strong coffee because it rains all the time in Seattle, their home base, and people are cold. So they want a hot drink. I know myself, I'll drink chicken broth at night sometimes, hot chicken broth, because I want to drink something a little more palatable. But it's gotten to the point where everything's coffee flavored. And fall now is, what do they call it? Pumpkin spice. It's not autumn anymore. It's freaking pumpkin spice. I got to go get a pumpkin spice oil change on my car. What in the world? And they say there are health benefits to coffee, and there are things that it hurts us with. What do you know about that? You're the medical guy around here.
So there have been a lot of theoretical concerns about coffee for as long as I can remember. And for a long time, I would read all these articles about coffee. My name is Coffee. I drink a lot of coffee. I love this stuff. And every other year, coffee was bad for you. It was going to do something terrible to you. And then every other year, it was pretty good for you. So I just started reading it not even numbered years, and I felt much better. But actually, for about a decade now, the studies have been more and more positive. Things like delaying cognitive decline, performing better at work and on tests, mood elevation, decreased colon cancer, although there's some conflict on that, but it looks like it may actually have some positive effects on decreasing the risk of colon and a couple of other cancers. Concerns were rapid heart rate, anxiety, and high blood pressure. And I would absolutely agree. If you're experiencing those things, either drink less coffee or don't drink any coffee at all. By the way, most of the beneficial aspects of coffee, it's a fantastic antioxidant, better than green tea as an antioxidant. It also has epicatechin in it. So coffee pretty much rocks it as a nutritional herbal supplement. But if you find that the caffeine gets you agitated, you'll like this. The beneficial aspects of coffee mostly do not come from the caffeine. Decaf coffee has the same benefits as caffeinated coffee, except for the boost in alertness and test-taking skills. Obviously it helps there to be a little on the perky side. But for everything else that I was just discussing, it's actually on the positive side. So the only bad side of America getting obsessed with coffee right now is that the areas that can grow coffee are shrinking because of the hoax of climate change. Apparently, just telling the climate that it's going to get hotter tricks it into thinking it is hotter, and so the coffee growing fields are shrinking and becoming less abundant. So coffee is going to get significantly more expensive over the next couple of generations.
I would also say the old saying, all things in moderation. Though I've had too many cups of coffee during a workday and actually start shaking, so.
That never happens to me. I've had 5-6 cups of coffee today already. In fact, I had another one right before we started this podcast. And it didn't have any effect on me at all. In fact, I could drink 10, 20 cups of coffee. I've done it many times. I might have done it today. I really lost count.
Okay.
It doesn't have any effect.
Okay. I'll pull the old Jack Benny. All right, everybody. That uses up our time for today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please tune in once again. I'm Pete Christensen.
And I'm Coffee Brown.
Remember,
Don't die dumb.